Hey guys, I hope everybody's doing well. It's been a little while since I did an easel video, but I was looking through my content and I don't think I ever covered a video on cut settings. So if you're new to easel, came to the right place. Take a look through my videos. I have a lot of stuff on there for easel. Also, some of my videos, if you look real close at the names of them, have free easel files in the description. So I highly recommend you go through my content and take anything you can that's free. But on top of that, take a look at the videos. And if you have any comments or suggestions on things you'd like to see, please leave it in the comment. And I'll do my best to try to make a video catered to you. All right. So let's get started. So within easel here, right, we have an easel screen open. We're on a split screen, all right. Over here in the upper right corner, if you're using easel to cut, then the wood selection is kind of important, right? So if we were cutting like mahogany, you would want to cut at a different rate of speed than you would if you were cutting with oak wood, right? But the one thing you notice here is that I just changed from mahogany to oak, and our speeds, plunge rate, and depth per pass did not change at all. All right, and that's what we're going to talk about today. I cut with a Onefinity machine, which is very rigid compared to some other machines that may be ran on belts and V-wheels, may not be as rigid as some other machines, thus meaning you need to cut at a different speed. So what we're going to start with is we'll just take a default design here. Let's take the boot, and we want it to fill, right? I don't normally use their default designs, but let's say we wanted to cut a boot out of this size here, right? We'll make it a little bit smaller. Let's go with 8" by 8" and 3/4 inch wood. I'll stop there for a sec so those of you that may be new to easel can catch up. And I'm going to change the wood type back to birch plywood. And then we're going to center this. So everything's highlighted. I'm just going to drag it. If you wanted to make sure it was perfect center, hit edit, go to center to material, and there it is, right? So let's say we were going to carve this boot, and we also wanted to write boot somewhere near the top. All right. So let's say you were using a 1/8 bit. We already know off the bat we can't use a 1/8 bit because it will not carve the T correctly or all of the O's. So we already know that we need either a smaller bit or a V bit. If I was to pick like 1/32, you can see that it still didn't quite do it. But if I select a V bit, we get everything, right? But we talk about the cut settings. At default, if you were cutting from easel or saving this G code, it would be set default to cut at 30 inches per minute at a plunge rate of 9 inches per minute at a depth per pass of 0.028. That means when we go to simulate this, It's going to take 1 hour and 30 minutes to cut this out. Okay. Depending on your machine, you really need to know your machine, right? I know my machine, what it can handle. And on average, I usually cut at 150 for the feed rate, and the plunge rate I cut in half. And then depth per pass, I always like to be conservative with the depth per pass. I like to do it at around 0.06 to 0.08. Rule of thumb, whatever bit diameter you're using, you don't want to exceed that. So if it was a 1/8 bit, you don't want to exceed 1/8 per pass, or your bit's most likely going to snap. Now, by changing these settings here, if I re-simulate it, it went from 1 hour and a half to 24 minutes. And this is using nothing but a V-bit. Now the V-bit here, the cleanup of it, it's going to take multiple passes, right? These littler crevices, it'll do quick, but this big bulky portion of the boot, it's going to do it in passes, and the V-bit's very pointy. So another step you could take here, remember we're at 24 minutes, we're going to change the bit here to a 1/8. Do a 1/8 bit, and then we're going to click this little plus symbol to add an additional bit, and we're going to do a 60-degree V-bit. The outcome looks the same, but if you notice here, the roughing is at the speed I told it originally, and the detail goes back to its default. So we're going to make that the same, 150, 75, and 0.06. Now, if I simulate this, we're at 7 minutes for the roughing pass and 9 minutes for the detail pass. So now we dropped it from 1 hour and a half to 24 minutes with 1 bit. Or if you break it into 2 bits, we're at even smaller time, we're at 16 minutes. The detail pass, honestly, since the roughing would be taking out a lot, I could up this, say 220, simulate it, and we're still at the same time. So it doesn't really make a difference on the finishing pass, or the detail pass, we'll call it an easel. But if I upped the speed on the roughing and took out a little bit more material, we're now at 1 minute and 9 minutes. So now we've dropped it to 10 minutes. And keep in mind too that if I highlight all of the boot, we're actually telling this to cut at a little over 1/4 inch, right? So I don't know what depth we're going to cut it to, but for the purpose of this simulation, we're leaving it at that depth. When you go to save this G-code, when you've got the detail bit, it's going to give you two different G-code files. It's going to give you one that's called roughing, and you can see that in here. It'll be roughing and detail. So remember that if you do these, if you use 2 bits. If you are not pressed for time, you don't mind waiting I think it was 24 minutes just to use a V-bit, you could. But I could tell you for this particular cut, you have a cleaner finish if you did the roughing and the detail, because then your V-bit's just going to hit the edges and give it that nice pointy marks in the corners. You'll have a slight edge going around, but then the center of everything will be cleaned up nice and clean. Sometimes with the V-bit, you've got to come back and do some cleanup work or a little bit of sanding based off of your depth. So there's some tricks I use when I am factoring in projects. If it's a smaller project and I'm only doing it once, I may just use the V-bit and just let it cut. But if I had to make multiple of these, I would most likely do the roughing rough it out, finish it, throw in the next one, start the paint work while the other one's going. So there's some quick little tips and tricks to your speed rates, your plunge rates, and your depth per pass. Pay close attention to those things when you are setting up your G-code. They're very important. If you don't pay attention to these, you're either going to be waiting too long, or you potentially could be wasting bits because the settings are incorrect. So pay close attention to this stuff, and also, as always, guys, know your machine, know what your machine can handle, because that's important too. Obviously, there are machines out there that can handle way higher speeds, deeper plunge rates, and more depth per pass, depending on your bit diameters. All right. Thanks for watching, guys. As always, have a great day. Thanks for watching.